Welcome to Lawyer Talk. I'm Adam Goldfein. Thank you so much for joining me. Literally millions of Americans every year will be injured and will need medical attention and may need other damages as a result of someone else's negligence. And when that happens to you or a loved one, it may be time that you speak with a personal injury attorney. Now, who better to speak with than my good friend Richard Griffin? Richard, thank you for coming on Lawyer Talk. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Glad to be here. Glad
so, millions of people are involved in motor vehicle accidents and slip and falls and dog bites and gunshot wounds and all sorts of crazy scenarios every year.
That's absolutely true. You know, we get phone calls all the time from people that, you know, they don't know what the answers are to their, you know, what to do next. I mean, they need medical treatment. They're losing wages at work. They're wondering what to do, and they call because they don't have the answers. And for free, we'll be glad to work, you know, answer those questions to make sure that they're doing the right things for themselves and for their case.
You know, you really come right to the heart of the matter, and I think what I'd like to do with you, if we can today, is address for the individual, because this is the real concern. What is my case worth, if anything? Is my case worth $1? Is my case worth $1 million or $100 million? Let's address all the damages, right? Because if somebody gets hurt, they don't know, should I go to an attorney, not go to an attorney? What might I be entitled to? So can we do that?
Absolutely.
All right.
You know, first you're going to have your medical expenses, not just your past medical expenses, but also your future. Oh. And a lot of times that gets left off the equation. A good personal injury attorney is going to make sure that those doctors put in writing, if there is the need for future treatment, what is it going to cost?
Okay.
Lost wages. If you're missing time from work, you know, in a bad economy, you miss time from work, you're in trouble. You need to get that.
Because I think a lot of people are concerned. They don't want to go to the doctor because they don't want to risk their job. And you're saying that not only can you get me medical expenses paid, but you can also have me compensated for that time I'm away from work.
That's exactly right. And that's a past and future. There are times that injuries are going to make it where you'll never be able to continue doing what you're trained to do, what you love to do. Well, you can recover not only for your past lost wages, but also that lost income in the future, which can be very substantial.
What about pain and suffering?
Pain and suffering is something that you're entitled to, and it is something that is very fact-specific. You know, juries are going to listen to the claimant, the plaintiff. They're going to listen to the spouse. They're going to listen to the before and after witnesses to hear how your case, how your injuries have negatively impacted your life, and they're going to put a price tag on that.
Now, when somebody calls you and they say, okay, well, these are the facts, this is what happened with me, are you able to actually assess and help them establish or evaluate what the value of their case is?
Well, I am. I'm able to start the process. Now, certainly that process is going to involve getting the treatment that you need.
And let's talk about that. Stay with us. I'll tell you what, we're going to talk about research when we come back on Lawyer Talk. Welcome back to Lawyer Talk. I'm Adam Goldfein, and with my good friend Richard Griffin. I will tell you, if you've been involved in, let's say, a motor vehicle accident, and you don't call Richard's office, you very well may be receiving less money than you should. And that's really what we're talking about, are the damages that you receive after you've been injured. Now, Richard, you started telling us real fast that I would have compensation for my medical expenses. You added on lost wages.
Right.
You added on pain and suffering.
Right.
We started talking about that, and I had jumped to the question of claim evaluation, because I think, and let me just kind of roll back, I think there are scenarios where people are involved, let's say, in very minor accidents. They have a little whiplash or a little soreness, and somebody at work will tell them, now you don't have a claim, forget it, just go on your way, or they feel guilty.
Right.
Do they have a claim if it's, let's say, a very minor situation, or could they have a claim?
Yes, they absolutely do. And having a claim, you know, just involves a negligent driver causing an accident which leads to an injury. Okay. I think what is important to know is sometimes you may feel like you have a minor injury, but you don't get better in time. In fact, you may even get worse. You seek more and more treatment. Conservative care doesn't work, so then you get injections. They do tests. They go, wow, we thought it was a soft tissue injury, now it's a herniated disc. I had a case like this, and it was a relatively minor impact in that it was $1,200 worth of property damage. The adjuster was like, oh, nobody could be hurt.
Sure.
Well, it turned out that when the treatment was done, he needed to have not only injections, but also a fusion. The fusion didn't take well and needed to have a second surgery, and then had an infection. Well, people said, well, gosh, how can you really be hurt with $1,200 worth of property damage, which clearly is not the truth, but that's what adjusters like to argue. In this case, we tried the case, and ended up getting $500,000 for that individual who had $1,200 worth of property damage.
So you're talking really just a bumper. A $1,200 is a very light impact on an automobile.
Right.
Right? And then as a result, it resulted in a $500,000 I guess, conclusion to that matter.
Yes, a jury verdict. And the reason why is because the property damage, even though they like to latch on to that, you know, there are a lot of studies. There was a study in Florida where there was over 500 deaths and over 100,000 serious injuries from a 10-mile-an-hour or less impact.
Really?
So, you know, that's one of the arguments that adjusters and defense attorneys really like to play up on. But what's more important is looking at the facts of the case. Is that individual really injured? And the doctors are the ones who are best in the position to make that call.
And obviously, the insurance company's position is they are trying to adjust and settle that claim for as little money as possible. That's their goal.
Absolutely.
Right? And to completely wipe out any other future claims you may have.
Right. With a general release that would end everything. And a lot of times that happens as soon as they can after the accident. What they want to do is say, hey, go ahead and sign this, we'll give you $500, we'll give you $800. But if you sign that, then you have waived your personal injury claim, and you may be stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical treatment that you need that you just waived with a quick settlement.
So if someone's, say, watching this at home and say, hey, I had a car accident, I had a car accident 6 months ago, 2 months ago, yesterday, and I want to talk to you, can they talk to you and have you consult them, and I'd like you to do it free of charge? Would you sit down with them?
Absolutely. I'll be glad to answer their phone calls, have a phone consultation, do it via the internet with email, or you can go to my website at injuryatlanta.com and submit your case, or you can set an appointment and come in and sit down with me, and I will, for free, talk to you about your case, answer your questions, and let you know what I think your case is worth.
What if I'm so injured and I can't come? Will you come to me?
Yes. Yes. We have... I have employees that I send out to meet with people for their convenience, because there are times they are in the hospital or they're at home and they just cannot get to me. Well, we will get to them and make sure that we get the information we need to start the case if that's what they want us to do.
Does having an attorney or not having an attorney make a difference as far as the damages are concerned?
Well, absolutely. I mean, there was an insurance study that was done that said 3.5 times more if you have a personal injury attorney versus
how much?
3.5 times more.
So wait a minute. So you're telling me if I had a $100,000 claim without an attorney, according to the insurance company's study,
yes,
I would have gotten $350,000 with an attorney?
That's what their study found. I have I have found that sometimes that number is way off, because a lot of times without an attorney you're going to end up with zero or nothing. Or a very small amount, when you may be entitled to hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it is completely your right. It's what you need to do is to find out, get your answers that you need to those questions. Doesn't cost anything.
I'll ask you this real fast, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. Give me an example of a case where somebody was offered a nominal amount of money and ended up with a much larger result. Okay.
There was a case involving a refrigerator that was improperly installed. There was no doubt that it was improperly installed. In fact, we allege punitive damages, or damages they're trying to punish or deter that bad conduct.
So what was the original offer?
The original offer was zero until we filed the lawsuit. Then they agreed to pay $50,000. The problem was the medical expenses were $80,000, and the future medical expenses were another $40,000. So we had $120,000 in medical, past and future.
How much did you get?
We got $1 million in a jury verdict.
That's slightly higher than 3.5 times.
Right.
Okay, so I mean, there's a major difference in having a hired gun fight on your behalf. And that's really what we're talking about, is making sure that you have all the facts that you need to evaluate what your claim is worth. And here's the thing to understand. This is not free money. This is money that's making you whole. We're going to continue our conversation with Richard Griffin here on Lawyer Talk. Don't go anywhere. You're watching CW69. Welcome back to Lawyer Talk. I'm Adam Goldfein. I'm speaking with one of Atlanta's top personal injury attorneys, Richard Griffin. Now, Richard, you've been involved in the practice of law for coming up on what, 2 decades
15
almost?
Years,
yeah, 15 years.
Right.
A graduate of Emory, a super lawyer in Atlanta. Right. You've won numerous awards from the Bar Association. You're one of the most humble guys I know outside of the courtroom, and you are what I would consider, I like to consider you like a hammer in a velvet glove. Okay, everybody thinks you're real nice, and then you whack them. Is that, you kind of get them. That's kind of your thing, isn't it?
Well, it is. I try to make sure that it's not an unpleasant experience for my clients. There are sometimes people hire attorneys, and I get a phone call and they'll say, gosh, I hired this attorney, I thought he was a bulldog, and it was miserable. I mean, it was just unpleasant. The result wasn't any better. I like to make sure that I meet them where they are, help them with what they need, and it needs to be pleasant. I want our firm to make sure that we give the best customer service possible. Now, that said, that does in no way means that the result is not going to be the best we can possibly get, because that's our focus, that's our goal, is to make sure you're fully compensated. And that means that we're going to guide you through the process. We're going to make sure that if you say, I don't have health insurance, what do? We're going to say, well, we can help, because there are doctors that'll treat on liens, there are doctors and there's MRI centers that'll do it on a lien.
And let's explain what that means. And what he's basically saying, they'll do it on a lien, meaning that the doctor will provide you care and you won't have to pay. The doctor will then say, okay, please pay me when you have your settlement. Okay, so Richard, you have those relationships to make sure that your client is getting the attention that they need and not letting the medical coverage or the lack of current funds stop them from getting that medical attention.
And that can be a huge factor, because your case, if you have the need of a surgery, for example, and you need to have it, if you don't have it and you should have had it, then your recovery is going to be far less.
Let's talk about this for a minute, because there are a lot of situations where you have a catastrophic injury, and let's just say you needed $100,000 worth of medical attention,
right,
but maybe the policy limits were only $50,000 that didn't cover it. Are there times that you're able to negotiate the amount of the medical bill so that your client actually gets money? Has that ever happened?
Yes. There's two different ways that's happened.
Okay.
First of all, through funding companies, if you have a good personal injury attorney, there are times where these same relationships, you can go to a surgeon after I get a recovery for a workers' comp client, or after I get a recovery for someone who's seriously injured in a truck accident. They have a lot of money in their hands, and they can go to a surgeon and to the hospital and negotiate themselves a discounted rate by having cash in hand.
Okay.
That's one way. Another way is on the backside of the case, when the case settles. If I've found, it's sad when this happens, but a lot of times people's cases are worth a lot more than the available insurance.
Okay.
Let's say I've looked and I said, well, what insurance did the negligent driver have? What insurance did the owner of the vehicle have? What insurance did any employer might have that would be liability coverage that would cover it? Are there any umbrella policies? Are there any uninsured motorist policies? When I look under every rock to find as much insurance as I can and stack them all and recover everything I possibly can for the client who's catastrophically injured, that may still not be enough to cover all the medical expenses. And in that case, my job is to try my best to help in that situation as well. And there was a case where there was $400,000 bill with a hospital for a fractured pelvis, and there was a $25,000 recovery. Well,
that was the limit of the policy.
That was all there was. It was a stolen vehicle. It was a UN policy.
Wow.
So it's one of those very, very, very sad things. But I try my best to make the best out of every situation.
So what happened with the $400,000?
Well, I was able to make sure that my client didn't have to go bankrupt. The hospital agreed to take $18,000.
From $400,000.
Right. So that saved their credit. They got to wipe clean $400,000. And we made the best out of a situation. If there had been great insurance, we'd have gotten a phenomenal recovery.
Most attorneys wouldn't have done it. Most attorneys would have walked. Most attorneys would have said, there's not enough here. There's no meat on this chicken bone. Okay? And they would have put the bone down. You're a good man.
Well, we try to help as much as we can. And sometimes what we can do is limited by the policy limits. But we're still in there. We're still there fighting for our clients.
I mean, there are so many aspects. What I want to talk to you about when we come back is I want to talk to you about some of the pitfalls, some of the dangers, some of the traps, some of the tricks that you employ to help really get the client as much money as possible, because that's really what we're talking about. How are you fully compensated? Well, you need to have a professional that truly understands the nature of the law. You need to be educated about what your rights are as well, so you can make an informed decision. And that's why we do this show, right, to really bring it up front and personal. If I were to start and just say, and we're going into this, the biggest single mistake individuals make
is not hiring an attorney.
Not hiring an attorney.
Right. Okay,
because you're going to be talking about preserving evidence, right?
Right.
Finding all the information you need, establishing and making that claim, knowing the value, negotiating on your behalf. And then the list goes on and on and on. Right?
Absolutely.
I mean, people are simply not compensated the way they should be because they wouldn't have proper representation.
That's right. And you get one bite out of the apple. I mean, if you settle for less than you meant to, you should have, you're stuck with it. You really have to make it count the first time.
Yeah, there are no do-overs.
Right.
There are no mulligans, okay? And the reality is that when you got up in the morning and God forbid you got injured, you didn't plan on it. So you need to know who to turn to in the event that you are involved in a personal injury matter. You're watching Lawyer Talk. I'm Adam Goldfein. Stay with us. We've got a whole bunch more with my good friend, Richard Griffin on CW69.